Good morning and welcome to our Good Friday reflection. This is the second part of the two videos. The first part has the passage written that is chapters 18 and 19 of John's Gospel, and this video contains the reflection on that passage. There's so much in those two chapters that I could spend hours and hours reflecting on what they say. But I would just like to point out three areas worthy of reflection. Firstly, power. Secondly, discipleship. And thirdly, the inversion of expectations. So, firstly, power. The power dynamics in that passage, the power dynamics between Pilate and Jesus and the crowd are so interesting. At first glance, it's clear that Jesus has no power, while Pilate has all the power. But then, as we hear the exchanges between Pilate and the crowd, it's clear just how fragile his power is. You can feel his tension rising as he tries in vain to release Jesus. Jesus, alternatively, has power because he knows he's going to be crucified. And he goes willingly because he knows that that's part of God's plan. And so he actually has more power than Pilate. Pilate's power is temporal, fragile, uncertain. It's a bit like the power of an MP or a Prime Minister who knows in a few years' time he could be voted out of power. Jesus' power, on the other hand, comes from his assurance of God's love, that the path he's taking for his life is part of God's path. It's eternal and continues beyond death. In fact, as Sunday will show, it includes power over death. That power is true power. And then discipleship. That discipleship is shown in an extraordinary light. The disciple that we're used to seeing as the hero, Peter, is the one sneaking about in the dark and denying Jesus, while the ones we don't normally see, Nicodemus and the women, who are normally either sneaking about in the darkness or so far in the background as to be invisible, they are the ones who are shown to be the ones making the difference. They are ones standing at the foot of the cross. They are the ones preparing Jesus' body for burial. It points me to the important truth that discipleship isn't about being the one up front, leading the way. The discipleship is about the quiet, personal journey of faith that occurs at home, in the workplace, in the gentle actions of care and love for the stranger. It's been wonderful in recent days listening to those reflections of people from the congregations, listening to the journeys of faith, the struggles and joys of that journey that so often we don't hear. If I'm Peter in the Bible story, then Sue Hayward-Giles, Carol Cassidy, Robin Wraith, these are all the ones who are the Nicodemus and the Marys of the story. They are the true heroes. And that leads me on to my final reflection, which is the inversion of expectations. The disciples expected Jesus to come as the king in glory. Pilate expected Jesus to beg for his life. Peter expected to stand up for Jesus and be willing to die for him. So many expectations were inverted by the truth of what was happening in front of them. And if the story of Jesus' final hours tells us anything, it makes clear that whatever expectations we have of God, religion, worship, our faith journey, we need to hold them lightly, because God may have different expectations. He may have a different path for us to travel. And if we're to travel his path, we have to be willing to have those expectations transformed. We have to, like Jesus, trust God's path, and that he can take disaster and sadness and turn it into great joy. It's Friday, but Sunday's coming, as one book put it. May God bless you on this Good Friday. Amen.